How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go on to a contract called Risky Cleanup. I'm on the Crossroads map, so the first map, and it was supposed to, in theory, be a pretty simple contract, but just about everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Yeah, partly because of this bloody truck, to be honest. So it's in the first group of contracts, and at first it just says drive down to here to the point of contact. Once you get there, you just kind of drive through a blue square. 4 secure containers will kind of appear around the train. And then you've got to load them up and then take them over to this rail yard in the bottom left corner. So there's 4 secure containers, so I'm going to kind of cut across the fields, make my way over to the trailer store. I'm in an area whether to get a 2-slot or a 4-slot trailer, and then follow my way down the rail tracks, partly because I can just uncover that little like shaded area while I'm at it, and secondly just so I don't kind of double back on myself, just to sort of have a different route each time. Yeah, and then take it over to that rail yard, and again, in theory, should be a pretty simple task. So yeah, for this one, I've got the Bandit, and part of the reason I used the Bandit in the end was I was going through the different vehicles. I actually wanted to go and use like an American vehicle. I was considering the ANK Civilian, but that couldn't have a crane, nor can the normal ANK. There was just loads of stuff that was like, oh, I can't have a crane on that, etc. So in the end, I already had a Bandit equipped from like the other day. I was nearly going to use one. Yeah, so I just thought, sod it. That'll do. I can have, well, it's got the KRS Bandit crane, which out of all the little cranes is the one I prefer the most. And yeah, I can have the mud tyres on. Funnily enough, you can't put the new mud tyres on this Bandit for whatever reason. I believe these are the only set of muds you can use. It's not the end of the world. I've got to be honest, I've been using those new muds recently, and yeah, kind of, meh, a bit average. They're not really impressing me that much, so I'll probably just go back to choosing, well, chained some of the time, and yeah, custom muds, just all the normal muds or whatever. Yeah, with this Bandit, you can get a roof rack on it, but the reason I didn't is like, it's quite a good example now as I'm driving along. You can see how much chassis flex there is in this bloody thing, and because I've got the crane on, which you need a crane to pick those secure containers up, it was in a mission, it was on phase 7, I can't remember what the mission was called, but it was the last time I used the Bandit. I forgot that it's a pain in the arse. Yeah, there's so much flex that sometimes when you the cab flexes, the crane gets caught on the side of the roof rack, and then it just makes your weight all funny, and you tip over pretty easily. And secondly, like the roof rack that you add on, it's got 150 repair points, whereas goddamn horse has got 300. It's got 2 spare tyres, where goddamn horse has got 4, and then it's got 140 fuel, whereas the Lo4f's got 120. But I kind of, as I take the Lo4f as basically like a roof rack and just all-round goddamn professional, I kind of include the fuel that he's got in his fuel tank, so he's actually got like 200 fuel. Yeah, so it just kind of seemed better to do it that way. Plus, there's always an option to rescue, but that's kind of the issue that I came across with this Bandit. And again, when I picked it, I didn't even think about it or anything, but it's an absolute pain in the arse if and when you roll it, and it can be relatively easy to roll. I was quite like watching the suspension as I'm going over all these bumps. Yeah, it's just a pain in the arse. So you'll see now, there's a little edit here. This was the first time I went, and I hit this hay bale, tipped, and now I was like, oh, that's cool, I can do a Lo4f rescue. I had a autonomous winch on the Lo4f, so I didn't even need it in the end. I kind of just flicked myself back to my wheels. But then I spent the next 5 or 10 minutes like, yeah, you just drag the Bandit on its side all the time. I was like knocking it against trees. I eventually got it tipped, but between that I also missed a checkpoint when I was going through that field, so I slammed on, reversed into it and all that, just so it, like, I don't have to go on the map and delete it, and then so it showed me the next waypoints. And yeah, it just, all in all, I was like, sod this. It was just really scruffy, terrible footage, and the garage was only like just behind me by a minute or so anyway. So yeah, I went back and just, it was mainly because while I was trying to tip the Bandit, its engine was on some of the times, and it was burning all its fuel, and I don't think fuel would have been an issue regardless, but again, it was just a really untidy effort, and I wasn't too keen on it. I was already kind of over using the Bandit by now, but again, I came back to use it anyway. So yeah, go to the trailer store. In the end, I got a ramp flatbed. Couple of reasons. The 2 slot, even though I'd only really needed 2 slots, because I did originally plan to either just kick the loaf out and tow him behind me, or in theory I could put the loaf on the roof of the Bandit, but with how tippable the Bandit is, I kind of was off that idea anyway. The 2-slot trailer is actually, I wouldn't say it tips as much as this ramped flatbed, but it's not all that great. And then, yeah, the idea was I was going to put 2 secure containers in the sideboard, 2 on the ramped flatbed, and I can park the loaf on the back of the ramped flatbed. That was the original plan. Driving down here, it was going pretty nicely, although, just what I remember as well, when I was driving along at various times tonight, and I've noticed this on various other trucks, it's not just limited to this one, and some people have mentioned it in the comments as well. Particularly, I've noticed it more so in the last week or so. When you're driving along, particularly with like the high range gearbox in auto, you can get up to 8 gears. The game rarely lets me get into 5th gear out of 8, but it's mostly making me like be stuck in 4th gear, even if I'm mashing L1, which normally just jumps you up the auto gears, especially if you're just kind of floating along down a road. It doesn't always jump into 8th, but you could always easily get up to 7th gear, no problem. I think they've done some kind of cap on this phase. Not just the rev situation, I was saying it kind of yesterday where it was like the top end, but yeah, looking at the gears, I think they've done some kind of cap where it won't let you, most of the time, there was plenty of times it wouldn't let me out of 4th, every now and then I managed to get it into 5th, that was like if I was going along a road and letting the pace build up for quite a while, but it was definitely nowhere near as bad as that back in the day. Like, most vehicles, yeah, you just, again, mash L1 and it just kind of forces it to go up the auto gears. It just would not let me get out of 4th for the about 95% of the time. And then driving along now as well, I hit this stick, see the goddamn horse, I was tipping, but then he bails out and it shifts the weight. So instead of me actually tipping over, I made it back to my wheels. But at this point, well, I'm stuck on a tree, which is a little disappointing because the trees just kick your ass in this phase. But long story short, I drove the Bandit up to like that square I'm about to head to, and I rolled it. And I couldn't be arsed sitting there trying to wedge it against a tree and tip it back to its wheels, so I did the quit and reload method. It was just here where it happened to save last time anyway, so it worked out pretty nicely. That's why this time like the loaf did an extra little roll. Again, like the engine would have started now anyway, but you know, he's got an auto winch on him, so I definitely would have escaped there. But yeah, stuck a winch on him, drag him over to here. Like I said, it was just one of those, I did this mission 2 or 3 weeks ago on the live stream, and it was a nice little mission to do. It was pretty simple, pretty easy, and I thought, oh yeah, it should be a nice easy one to do. I just wanted to get it done because on the list of contracts, the top group of contracts, called like the Kalari group or something, it's the only mission or contract that's unlocked at the minute. So I want to get some of the others unlocked just to get some like warehouses and all different bits and bobs unlocked. So yeah, that's just why I wanted to get it ticked off the list really. In and of itself, it's not the most important contract, but it's kind of adding up to, you have to do certain missions to unlock stuff. I think the 4th map, Harvest Corp, to unlock the garage on there's like various missions you've got to do. I can't remember 100% off the top of my head if this is one of them, but I think even if it isn't, you've got to kind of, you know, chip away at all the contracts just to unlock some of the later ones. So yeah, we finally got here after God knows how many attempts, and sent the loaf over just because, 2 choices really. You can either drive around to the other side to pick this secure container up, but particularly like the ramp flatbed is so tippy, once I've got to this side there is the other secure container, but I can kind of reach that from the other side. So yeah, rather than doing that and driving round and round the train, sending the loaf, you can kind of nudge the box, that's what she said, and yeah, I could just reach it. At that point though, I rolled the loaf. Again, it's one of those nights tonight. What should have been one of the most simple, enjoyable, chilled missions turned into an absolute disaster. If they'd let me have the crane on the A&K civilian, then yeah, I would have used that, and I've got a feeling it would have gone a lot better tonight. It's the biggest issue just with the Bandit. It's so terrible for not being able to tip back to its wheels. It's an absolute pain in the arse. I remember every time it happens, I'm like, yeah, this is why I don't drive the Bandit a lot. It's the same like the YAR-87 as far as the Scouts go. I like the vehicle, but it's so horrifically crap when you're trying to roll it back to its wheels that it's just not worth it. I don't even want to take the chance. So yeah, I got the loaf back. There's just one nice thing is there's like a little bush stuck in the ground that normally just plucks out of the ground for just about every other vehicle, but for whatever reason, this goddamn horse, he finds a way to make it happen. So I got him back to his wheels. And again, look at the ramped flatbed. Kind of reversing my own tyres over it. Yeah, the second secure container, it is on the other side, but as long as I can reach it from this side, saves all that hassle. And another issue with the Bandit, it's not the end of the world because you can have the roof rack on it, but it's got 150 fuel, which isn't a lot because it's not like it sips it. It does burn through it. I wouldn't say quickly, but it's not, you know, it's not exactly like it's using a litre a minute either. Again, if you add the roof rack, technically I think, yeah, it's got 140 litres, so you get up to like 290 litres, but the roof rack makes the vehicle more tippy, and like I said, I need the crane and it just catches on the roof rack and can cause that issue as well. Just left that bit in just to show you, like, when you're stacking stuff onto the trailer at the back, for anyone that's like a little bit newer, you don't have to reach all the way and like load the cargo properly. As long as you can just reach the first slot of, like, on the ramped flatbed, then you can just kind of stack them on each other, do unpack and pack, and it'll just kind of jump them both in place. To be fair, the KRS Bandit crane is longer than I thought. Again, that's what she said. But yeah, you just kind of, I don't know, I was pretty happy that it actually managed to reach the ramped flatbed without me having to kind of jackknife the trailer and go at a 90-degree angle, which I have to do for quite a lot, particularly I'd say with like the yellow and blue cranes. So yeah, it was nice that it actually made it that far. And then the other two secure containers are on this side of the train, so it's all pretty simple. And that's one reason I do like the KRS Bandit crane. It actually lifts stuff even when you're at full extension and all the rest of it. It doesn't, for the most part, doesn't really complain. It can get a little bit iffy with the Scouts, but not too bad. Certainly not as bad as the other trailers. I was trying as well the big crane. The other day I was lifting a loaf with a big crane, and even when it was fully retracted, it couldn't lift it for like a few minutes. I had to sort of wing it and retract the winch in and kind of pull it up onto the sideboard of a vehicle. But then tried it, I think it was yesterday, and it was working fine again. So again, I'm pretty convinced in the last week they've done some kind of stealth update and they've broke a couple of things. They might have all done another stealth update since then to kind of patch a few things as well, just out of curiosity, because I've not done the hard mode myself, but I remember when people were saying when it, I think it was when it was updated, their hard mode had been like turned into normal mode. So just, yeah, if anyone, like, if there's any sort of update on that, if they've fixed that, then I'd appreciate it if you could let us know in the comments, just because I remember that was another bug that yeah, could do with fixing. I think quite a few people were pretty pissed off when yeah, it's basically turning the hard mode into normal mode, and I'm not sure if they were able to get it back. But anyway, faffing around with them, we eventually got that done, and yeah, now I've got to follow the road along the bottom of the map. I really need to get a loaf out with the radar trailer and just kind of neaten up the edges of this map. And at this point, I was yeah, I was pretty pretty done with the Bandit. I was like, for God's sake, just drive. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, these custom muds, they look nice, they sit nice and wide. I like them, I choose them when I can, even though they suck in mud. In terms of like sheer performance, I'd choose the chained or any of the muds over these, but yeah, they just sit nice and wide. And it may, like, if you put narrower tyres on, the Bandit might be a little bit easier to tip back to its wheels, but then it's easier to roll in the first place. That's kind of one reason I do like these custom muds, even on other vehicles. It's just, it makes it more difficult to roll in the first place. The biggie with this thing is that, yeah, look, like the chassis flex, you can see when the crane's near enough getting to like the edge of the cab. And yeah, in the end I decided to put all the secure containers on the ramped flatbed and put the goddamn horse in the sideboard. There's no particular reason, I suppose, other than he gets priority because he's goddamn professional. But the other thing was anyway, I was kind of like, if I'm putting 2 containers on the ramped flatbed, if it's going to tip, it's going to dump them anyway. So I'm still going to have to get the crane out. So I may as well, yeah, just put them all on there. And for the most part, I was going in high gear now, but it wouldn't. Yeah, auto going along here. Apologies, a little glitch there. Yeah, I hope they sort something out with that. Again, I've just got a gut feeling they've done that as like a rev cap, or sorry, like a gear cap now, really, to try and slow the pace of the maps down. But personally, I don't know. I don't really mind the pace of the map. They're quite big maps, so even if you can get a little bit of a move on, it still doesn't feel like you know, going from A to B in like 30 seconds, like it did with, say, Factory Grounds or something. I just ran out of fuel there. I didn't even, instead of switching to the Lo4f and using the roof rack, I just robbed the fuel out of the Lo4f tank. And then yeah, it was there. The frame rates were going really slow and buggy. It kind of dropped down to, I don't know, it felt like about 10 frames a second. The mud flicking up off the tyres was going really slow. So I just parked it there for kind of a minute, let it settle down. It seemed to just about sort itself out. But that's what I mean tonight. It was like every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. I missed a waypoint, I had to go back for it. I tried to run over a hay bale and it absolutely fucked me up. Doing a rescue with a loaf, it went well. I rescued it, but yeah, it probably took a good 5 minutes or more just to try and, I just did like 3 or 4 circles of the field, spinning the Bandit around and all sorts. It just does not want to get back to its wheels. Yeah, then driving along, I rolled the Bandit again when I got there. Then I rolled the loaf, but he got himself out of it. And then I ran out of fuel, and then the frame rate went crap. It was a right disaster in the end. Like I said, I kind of picked this mission thinking, oh, it'll be a nice, cool, chilled mission, and I was about ready to pull my hair out by the time I was getting to the end of it. And finally now, though, in high gear, at least the high gears still doesn't feel like they've nerfed the crap out of that or anything. But yeah, I'll have to have a little play around with some of the different gearboxes, because if they're just going to keep capping us, like, and it's not letting you use half the gears, then I was going to say, well, there's not as much point in using it, but the high range gearbox, but it's the high range gear, the high gear that I really sort of can't do without. And then yeah, when I got here, it says to drop the secure containers off in this first yellow square, but it wasn't offering me like the cargo management thing. It was just bringing up another mission. And I'll do a little edit here just because I was faffing around, but eventually, after kind of driving backwards and forwards a few times, it brought up the menu at the bottom saying cargo management, and I could, yeah. But again, that's what I mean. It was just everything tonight. It was absolutely been a right savage beast to me. But get them dropped off, finally done. Money-wise, not amazing, but again, if it chips away, like I've actually unlocked some more missions in the first set of contracts, so that'll do. But yeah, not a massive fan of this truck, still not. I tried to give it another go. I want to like it. I like the look of it. I like the tyres. I like the KRS Bandit crane. The fuel's not the end of the world because I always take a goddamn horse with me. But yeah, just the chassis flex and the tippiness of it, or not necessarily the tippiness, although it's not great, but just how ridiculous it is to untip it is, yeah, I probably won't be using it again for a little while. But anyway, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to our Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf because he's a goddamn beast, and I'll be back soon.